then the tragedian's worldview, though, is the suggestion of Thucydides, an Athenian historian and also a soldier. For whereas the tragedians suggest that evil is due to some mysterious but divinely ordained necessity, Thucydides suggests that evil may be due entirely and simply, and even more terrifyingly, to sheer luck and chance. Thucydides doesn't read this as revealing some dark stain in the Athenian soul or revealing some sort of absolute brutality at the heart of all humans that's finally unleashed in situations of war. That's not his point. His point is that people in certain contexts will behave in certain ways. Character has little to do with it. But the necessity of context seems, over time, to outweigh the noble sentiments of moral character. For him, for the Greek tragedians, the key here, when it comes to thinking about evil, is that there is no simple or straightforward moral order. All of our moral actions are subject to dramatic reversal, deformation, and there are no guarantees that the human's moral sincerity will not, in fact, turn out to be destructive, perhaps even self-destructive. Thucydides is arguing with the Greek historian Herodotus, who was of a previous generation, and wrote actually about the Persian Wars, the wars that the Greeks managed to win to keep the Persians out. Herodotus saw history and culture as kinds of natural forces that shaped people's characters in certain ways, so that where you were from determined your historical behavior, your political forms in all sorts of ways. Herodotus thought of himself as a naturalist in a certain sense. Thucydides does not think that way. He sees people's decisions not as determined by their natural environment or their cultural context, cultural presuppositions, but importantly, shaped by the political pressures of the moment. Thucydides, and this is the important thing, believes in the accidental nature of things. He does not believe in determinism. Now, along with this, he's completely convinced that history always repeats itself, that the fundamental conditions of human interaction, the mix of motives and modes of apprehension that together make up human nature, these don't change for him. This is why, as he says at the very beginning of his book, Thucydides writes his book to offer lessons for people who will be in the same situation as he was at some point in the future. The war itself, he thought, is caused by misunderstanding and especially fear. After the Persian Wars, Athens grew increasingly powerful, eventually gaining hegemony over most of the rest of Greece. The Spartans feared for their own independence, and the growing tension between Athens' hegemony and Sparta's fear led eventually to the war. Once the war is started, like all wars, it takes on a life of its own, and it begins to master the combatants. Both sides expected a quick victory, but neither gets it. Both bear with the war, however, hoping it will exhaust the other side before it exhausts their own. Neither considers the moral costs of the war, the damage and deformation it will do to their souls, though Thucydides himself does. And in some ways, this is the greatest moment of his work.